If you know anything about quote unquote film criticism on the internets, let's be honest, and I'm not any different. We are all searching for money and how to monetize. And one of the more notorious websites is CinemaSins, which has given birth to CinemaWins and a lot of clones. Now, I agree that the basic thing with CinemaSins is correct. It's just a bunch of silliness. It doesn't really mean anything. It's not real film criticism. But nevertheless, they do actually end up with some strong points here and there. And I'm on record, and have been for a while, that Infinity War and Endgame are some of the worst films of all time, which is complete heresy to a lot of people who consider those films either perfect or near perfect. And so we're going to go through a sample of both CinemaSins at its worst, but also where they might actually make some genuine good points. And we're going to concentrate on Endgame. This discussion is fully spoiled.
Once again, teleholograms will have a normal conversation with each other like they're literally standing in a room like this, when in fact they're all by themselves in some sort of holo booth that I would just once like to see in operation. If they're wearing VR, we'd see it on their holograms. If they have a panoramic video screen around them that is tied to a certain channel, then where is camera?
Come on, is this really something wrong with Avengers Endgame? Who the hell is sitting around going, gee, I wonder how these holograms work? I mean, there's a talking space raccoon on the screen who not only speaks English, but does so with a Brooklyn accent. Who gives a shit about how these holograms work, and why would the movie be better for explaining it?
Well, I agree with the countersins that yes, harping on about holograms is pretty weak. Now, that said, if we do follow, for lack of a better word, the EFAP method, then yes, you're going to start generating plot holes like crazy. You're going to, in fact, generate infinite plot holes out of nowhere by being stupid. I take for granted that yes, it doesn't technically make any sense. I mean, we know what is really going on. The actors are just being filmed different places, different times. They're being spliced together. But in terms of the hologram technology, listen, we know that the Avengers have technology far, far ahead of the technology of the time period. And we also know that they're allies to the Wakandans. The Wakandans clearly have very futuristic technology. It's not beyond the realm of possibility that they just shared some of this technology or they have their own technology that does allow holograms to interact with one another. Senosins is correct that this is a little iffy. Like, how did this hologram technology appear? How does it work really? What are the limits? Because why couldn't they contact Tony? Why can't they contact Captain Marvel later in the film? So how far, how powerful this hologram technology? Yeah, it's a little iffy, but I do think inference that yes, they have this kind of technology. But he is correct. It's definitely concentrating on the visual nature of it. How it actually works is being completely skipped over. But yeah, this seems like a really minor nitpick. But now we're going to get into where both sides don't seem to know what they're talking about.
Sorry, that must have been a very long 5 years.
Yeah, but that's just it. For me, it was 5 hours.
The quantum realm makes years seem like hours. Why did Michelle Pfeiffer look 30 years older when she got rescued from it?
Ant-Man said that time works differently in the quantum realm, not that the quantum realm makes years seem like hours. At the end of Ant-Man 2, Janet specifically warned Scott to avoid time vortexes, meaning she knew to avoid them while she was there.
And don't get sucked into a time vortex. We won't be able to save you.
What if there was a way that we could enter the quantum realm at a certain point in time, but then exit the quantum realm at another point in time?
So you spent 5 hours in the quantum realm, and because of relativity, that was 5 years on Earth. The problem is, in both the quantum realm and in the outside world, time was moving forward. So why do you think there are points that you can go to just because of your 5-hour experience with relativity?
As I just explained, the point is that time works differently in the quantum realm. No one said anything about relativity. You see, this is why everyone should have watched Ant-Man 2. It's explained that there are time vortexes, and those vortexes are what the Avengers use to time travel. Now, Scott asking why can't they use his experience to go back in time is due to him having literally time traveled to the future. Logic dictates that if you can enter a vortex that can send you into the future, there might be a vortex that can go to the past.
So who do we talk to about this?
How about a fucking quantum physicist? Look, I know Tony's brilliant, but this has never been his forte. If anything, Scott himself should know some more appropriate scientists through his associations with Hank. Why not see if Larry Fishburne is still alive?
Except physics is precisely where Tony's expertise is concentrated. With Hank Pym, Shuri, and Spider-Man all dead, the Hulk and Iron Man are the only two geniuses they know about with the capability to handle this, and Bill Foster is on the run.
Well, I think the major point Countersins made is actually very powerful. This has actually been a major, major issue. Whether you like Endgame or hate Endgame, people have debated the issue of its physics independent of the film. You don't have to care about the film or like the film. A lot of people have really gone to town about how the physics and the time travel can't make any sense, so the story is fundamentally broken. I share those concerns, but here I think this is actually a really good discovery because for a long time I thought the hour to a year thing with Scott was a major, major problem. And I didn't think that Ant-Man 1 or 2 really resolved this. And I disagree how CinemaSins cures this issue. I don't think the vortex issue does solve everything. By the way, he's getting the grammar wrong. I think it's vortices. It's vortices. It's like matrix. Matrix is matrices, not matrices. But we'll put aside the grammar. He is correct that Scott is not really talking about relativity theory. So him trying to bring in quantum physics, you can do that. It's perfectly legitimate, but technically relativity is not involved because the quantum realm here is very, very weird. I also think he is correct that it does appear like a plot hole with Michelle Pfeiffer, but that is assuming that this weird system of the quantum realm is monotonic, right? That you spend time in it that equals lengthened time in quote the real world. But that's not really in the film. That's something that the fans are thinking about. I don't think the vortex issue solves everything, but yeah, I mean, that's what I thought. SK actually has a really great video on Endgame. He's actually one of the few who are really, really adamant about it. And he gives it a 2 out of 10. I'm not going to go that far. I think Avengers Endgame is a 4 out of 10 or 4.25. I think that's being generous, by the way. So I agree, you can get it to 2 out of 10, but I prefer getting there with legitimate concessions here and there. I mean, again, the SK video is very good, but I thought he was being a little too harsh. I did assume that the quantum realm might have different levels, different regions, maybe different places work differently in the quantum realm. That seems to be what Scott is implying. And he's not invoking relativity, at least not straightforward. He's just saying, listen, time is a line, whereas I was able to exit the line, quote, in the future, we could go through a different point and the line will be, quote, in the past. So they're not really doing time travel, technically speaking. What they seem to be doing is, so it's basically time jumping. It's a little chaotic. So I'm okay with this explanation. It is still a little bit iffy. If you want to see it as a legitimate plot hole, that's fine. I don't think the vortex thing just solves everything. But yeah, the quantum realm is magical land. We just have to accept, quote, the quantum realm effects are just really weird. How they really work, we don't know. We're just going to have to accept some things on faith. Again, we have to allow the fiction a certain amount of leeway. We can just use normal physics and say this is pretty much garbage and silly. I think it is more silly from a deeper comic book perspective that they don't really need to do time travel because things are very different with the Infinity Gauntlet and Infinity War as comic books written by Jim Starlin, and they were much more well thought out. I think that's a better place to criticize Endgame, that they're basically making up their own story. They already had a better story, but they don't want to do that for whatever reason. But yeah, I'm willing to accept that the quantum realm has different levels, different dispositions, and it's more of a question mark, not a real plot. But we're going to see that Endgame does have massive, massive plot holes, which are genuine, and even if you're being generous, are still very, very problematic.